Meeting to order.
Okay. Are we live?
We are live.
Okay, just a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube.
Attendance.
Okay, all right, Raj Amar,
Here.
Tim Riley, Howard Hellman.
Here.
If the action item that will be tabled, the applicant has requested that this application be withdrawn for this meeting. We'll wait for word from them when they're ready to discuss this with more length. They have been having conversations with our councils, but since we're tabling it, let's save that conversation for another day. I don't have any new business. There's no old business, for me at least. The treasurer's report.
So the treasurer's report was sent to everybody electronically. Anybody wants to see copies or have any questions, they're right here. Any discussion? We need a motion to approve.
I'll move it. Okay.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Independent audit, which is a copy of your packet, we're soliciting bids for.
Yep, I was just, and it's a mirror of the IDA, so if you'd like, what we can do is we can discuss this a little bit more thoroughly when we have the IDA meeting. It's a mirror image of the IDA, rather than making it sit through it twice. we can discuss it it's just that, but our current independent auditors announced that they are no longer doing independent audits. So they're moving into a different part, which I guess apparently is not unusual. These audit firms are finding more lucrative areas to work. So just very briefly, and I'm doing exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, but the RFP was provided by the law firm we use for compliance purposes, Harris Beach. We reviewed it, it's fine, for my opinion, and we can discuss some of the people that we're going to be sending it out to at the IDA meeting again, so we don't have to talk about it twice, if that's okay with you.
It's okay with me.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
Can we say whatever the IDA approves, our REAC approves?
Yeah. Right.
We're very efficient.
No, I just gotta keep it in this meeting.
Exactly.
No, you're delegating your approval.
Okay.
Heidi, are you taking minutes?
No, I am.
No, Steve's taking them. I'm just pretending.
Okay.
I'm doing a dry run.
Just maybe what we should do is just introduce Heidi.
Yes. Okay. For everyone who has individually met her, this is Heidi Van Diver. Heidi is our administrator, and she has hit the ground running. In fact, she's already reminding me of things we need to do. So I give her a lot of credit. She's, because this is a whole new world with a lot new lingo, and she's getting it very quickly. So I think she's already made herself indispensable.
Thank you very much. I'm enjoying it so far. So nice to meet everyone. Glad to be here.
Welcome. Steve is.
It's early, I think it's early.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of nice things said about you, and we also appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
So normally, and to your point about the minutes, I figured that I would do the minutes so she can get a feel for what we need, because in the zeal of doing it, she may probably take voluminous more notes than necessary. So I want to give her a sense of what what the norm is. So,
Okay.
Shall I read the minutes?
Please.
Okay, meeting was called to order at 9 a.m. Howard Hellman, Tim Riley, Raj Amar members are present. There was the action items. The applicant withdrew the application for the time being. There was no new business, no old business. The board reviewed the treasurer's report, motion by Tim Riley, seconded by Raj Amar, all in favor to accept the financial report for June, July, and August. Executive director discussed the independent audit RFP that will be released. The board agreed and council made a point of saying that the REAC will go along with the IDA recommendation on the audit. And that's it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And that concludes that. We've got things to sign, but we'll do that. If you don't mind, we'll do that at the end. So,
IDA meeting.
IDA.
Call to order.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay. Tim Riley.
Yep.
Raj Amar.
Yep.
Howard Hellman.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just catch up. Okay, first item on the agenda is Rockland Gardens. I see Steve Yaski out there, so. he would-
Steve?
We're ready for Rockland Gardens.
Lots of friendly faces. Hello.
Hi, Steve.
How's everybody?
We'll just pull up chairs.
We need another one up there? We have.
No, we're
Good. So thank you for meeting with us today. This is Scott Langan. This is hopefully my future partner with Vitus. And
Frank Hogan.
And Frank Hogan. And
Frank's here to answer any technical questions. Steve is just here because he's so handsome.
I don't know about that. But, so basically, we're coming in regarding Rock and Garden Apartments, which is a 70-unit, Section 8 housing development in downtown Nyack. It is, it's basically garden apartments. It's north of Main Street. Sits on about 2 acres and change. And was actually built by my father's father in 1953. So it was built in 1953. Originally when it was built, it was just market rate housing. In 1979, they did the first major renovation with, and actually, I believe the bond dealer was Bear Stearns, and converted to Section 8 housing. We got a contract with the government, and we did a major renovation at that time. We did the electric, we did windows, we did some sidewalks, did other certain things. But now we're looking at 2022, and believe it or not, anybody who owns housing, we have some of the original kitchens, some of the original bathroom tiles, some of the original, and there's certain things that really aren't to code with Section 8. I believe our contract with HAP expires, I think, I want to say it's either 2028 or 2035.
I think it's at 2028, so it's at risk.
Right. So I came to know Scott through Arco Management over the years. So I've had a relationship with him for 30 years. And the idea was to keep it, we really didn't want to go to the market and sell to a third party. That's not where we're at. I live in Nyack. I'm part of Nyack. My sister lives in Nyack. But the property's in need of upgrades. And so we basically, I placed a call to Scott, and they do, again, they're family owned and operated similar to us, a lot of similar principles. We will stay in as a minority partner. And the idea is to do a renovation, hopefully, if everything works out with the incentives, do some sort of closing, ideally first quarter of next year. Probably start a lot of the work shortly thereafter. Scott, it's a big difference between working with a family operated and they're a big company. He's got a construction guy that we've met with a number of times, done inspections on pretty much all the property, what needs to be done. They've got a laundry list. But one of the things that they're trying to work with us with is work with a lot of the local contractors that we've worked with. His GC is out of the city, but everybody, they're probably the local contractors would ideally, and obviously with IDA, is get first shot.
Sure.
We've met with them, a lot of them already. We're still working out the specs on the bid packages, but that's kind of where it's at. But these other things like taxes, mortgage, different incentives are critical for the deal. Like I said, it wasn't shopped. We didn't put it on the market. I didn't list it with a broker. I wasn't looking to bring a third person in. It's kind of near and dear to me, and it's ironic because I was going through some of my dad's paperwork, and I've got a picture of him at like 16 years old on a bulldozer clearing the site with his dad. So that's kind of where it's at with how we look at things. So with that being said.
Sure, thank you, Stuart. My name's Scott Langa, and I'm a principal of the Vitus Group, and we are a national national developer, so I like to think I'm lucky enough to get to do preservation, and I would love to tell my kids I'm an actual developer, but I very rarely get to build anything from scratch, so I'm a redeveloper. And we've been lucky enough to work in about, I think, 32 total states, and we own 15,000 or almost 16,000 units. And, you know, I've met like Frank Hogan is our bond underwriter and here to answer any technical questions anyone might have today that's still out there. But like, you know, I met Frank for the first time on a deal in Brunswick, Georgia, and we've gotten to do some really interesting stuff all across the country. But I would say that this property is near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I will admit to finally graduating Fordham in 1986, or maybe it was 87. Don't tell my parents about that last semester. And so I was working for Jeff Goldstein and his dad at Arco at the time, and I got to meet Stephen's parents, and it was back in the day when Rockland Gardens was administered by the NIAC Housing Authority for Section 8. And, you know, and Stephen's parents were like good, you know, really good people, not pushy at all. And I'm like, guys, like, they owe you money. They owe you a retroactive rent increase. You know, let me help you out. So we had a really nice conversation with the NIAC Housing Authority, and we got it approved, and we got the property, you know, a bunch of retroactive money. So for some deferred maintenance back in the late 80s. And all I remember is driving over to his parents' office and picking up a check for, at the time, which was probably like $5,000 or $6,000. So it was a lot of money to me. And I remember I was telling Frank on the drive up this morning that it's near and dear to my heart because it allowed me to pay off my MasterCard bill from the suits I bought that I thought I was going to need after college graduation. So frankly, I'm prepared to do anything possible for Rockland Gardens. All that being said, you know, we're here today in front of you, you know, looking for, you know, to be able to get some bonds induced, and, you know, and ideally a long-term pilot and any other incentives that we can potentially, you know, negotiate with you guys on. I think this is a really good property. It's, you know, it's just like, you know, me and maybe even Stephen have gotten a little bit older, so it needs a rehab. Well, you know, we're going to be signing you know, if we get all this approved, we'll be signing a long-term preservation agreement with HUD. So this property will be affordable for, you know, 30 years from HUD's point of view, from New York State Housing and Community Renewal, probably 40 years in terms of a long-term use agreement. So it's good affordable housing that's not going to go anywhere. You know, beyond the natural, you know, the natural $4+ million in rehab that's going to be done. There's stuff like right now on this property, Stephen gets, you know, he's a better landlord than I might be at this point, but like, you know, he still gets called on a weekly basis from the fire department saying, hey, you've got to come out and fix this issue and stuff like that. So, you know, this building is older, so we're going to be doing some stuff that will help the fire department, help the local community, and frankly, the 70 families who live there will, you know, they're not going to be displaced. They're not going to be moved out, and they're not going to be told, maybe if everything works out, you can come back. They will all stay in and they'll be protected. So there will not be anybody, you know, marching or picketing. There's no rent increases based on this. It's going to stay the same in terms of what the tenants pay, but what's not going to stay the same is the property is going to be, you know, massively improved and will be set up for, you know, Stephen's family and my family 30 years from now to hopefully be back in front of, you know, most of you to maybe do this again. Hey, some of you. Okay. Sorry, not most of you.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
I was looking at myself in the mirror going, where am I going to be in 30 years?
I will tell you, and I'm sure Howard's familiar based upon housing that he has. The extent of the renovation, I will tell you, is kind of beyond my scope, my ability, because you're talking about kind of moving tenants out, gutting their apartments, managing that. And I will tell you, at this time in my life, managing a Section 8 housing job is important to us. I think every tenant's got my cell number, if you can believe that.
They do. I've been there. I've witnessed it.
So, not that I'm looking to step out, because I will still go down, I still drive by, but it's important. And I think it's kind of a jewel in Nyack. If you don't know where it is, you should drive by and see it. It's everybody that comes by is like, it doesn't look like Section 8 housing. Well, you know, something that shouldn't look like Section 8 housing. Scott, I was down in Savannah. Scott's got a Section 8 housing job in Savannah that is basically housing. It's houses.
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Don't tell all the people who spend $2 million on their townhouses that they're living next to it. You know, they get a little mad every once in a while, and I'm like, well, it is Section 8. We are still living in a democracy. Not everyone gets to have a couple $1 million house, but yeah, it was an old Victorian townhouses, and we got to do a massive historical rehab, and it was really fun stuff.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a few, just for the record. So nobody's gonna be displaced?
Nope.
Will there be any rent increase that you project?
What happens with Section 8 housing is it's based upon income.
Mhm.
So let's say our rent does go up, but the subsidy would go up theoretically and not the tenant's rent. As far as tenants, you know, like every complex, you have some tenants that are bad tenants. But other than that, no, we've had a lot, I think we have a lot of tenants that have been there. I'm gonna tell you, Senorita Ramirez was there. She was my Spanish teacher, my dad's Spanish teacher. She just passed away last year, so that's not the intent.
But so I'm
And we're actually, just so you know, we're 100% occupied. We have a 5-year wait list. We had to close our wait list probably 5 years ago. We just reopened it like a few years ago. And then we're back up to like, you know, and the only downside for our complex is we're basically made up of, I think it's 36 1-bedrooms and 34 2-bedrooms. And, you know, a lot of the housing structure in the county needs, you know, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. But we do, originally we were elderly. We still have a lot of elderly, but it definitely serves a need in the community.
The community garden that's there, you know what I'm talking about?
The community gardens, that's
Down by the
on South Franklin.
That has nothing to do with
That
it.
has nothing to do with it. That's a different, that's Robert Martin's.
Yeah, yeah.
Used to be Robert.
Yeah. Nye Plaza.
But, you know, there's, and there are, just so you know, there's some site things that we've actually discussed regarding like creating like a grill area, creating different stuff. So we have on-site parking there, which is kind of unusual. We also have on-street parking. We're gonna be doing sidewalks. There's a lot of exterior and interior work. You know,
Are you familiar with our labor policy?
why don't you make everybody feel?
Well, it's laid out, it's 80% has to be local
Yeah.
residents, et cetera, et cetera.
That's the intent.
And just a point, your contractor doesn't have to be local, but the workers.
The subcontractors.
And there's mechanisms for exemptions if certain circumstances
Yeah.
are met. It's all detailed in there,
Right,
but
that's all.
the workers don't have to be, I think it's the 5 mid and lower Hudson counties.
Right.
It's not just Rockland,
Right.
it's Rockland, Orange, Sullivan, Dutchess, and Westchester. I
Yeah.
believe.
Is it, I was gonna say, so, and we can tweak it, because we have, like, for instance, our sewer cleaning guy is New Jersey based. That's probably not a big number. I don't know how it works on
That won't be,
80%.
that's not
Right.
an issue.
You know, I think it's probably more framing,
Right, right.
you know, electrical.
It's people covered by the building permit, we'll leave it at that, how's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that's our intent. I've always hired local.
Right, and I know you have.
You know, that's kind of where we're at.
So you said you're not going to displace people, but at the same time, how are you going to do construction interior? Are you doing the apartments physically, or
They'll
are you just doing
be-
the hallways?
So there's 2 ways that it gets done, and it really sort of depends on, you know, the municipality ultimately. So, and we've got a situation going on in East Hartford, Connecticut right now where, you know, general contractor X will go into a unit on Monday, and the family will they'll have been moved out to a motel or a hotel nearby, will arrange for their kids to get to school, food program, you know, food, all that stuff, and they'll sort of then a week from that first Friday, they'll come back into an apartment completely done. We've done transactions in Staten Island where, amazingly enough, the city let us do it, where, you know, work will get done, the kids will go to school, work will get done from 9 to 3, the apartment will get put back together. If, you know, there are situations where I was a little embarrassed, where I was at a tenant meeting, and they're sort of handing out hot plates. I didn't even know they made hot plates anymore. But I think in this case, they'll move out for 10 days and then come back, just because, you know, I don't care whether you're a Section 8 resident or whether you're a non-Section 8 resident. I mean, it is like, there's just dust and stuff like that, but it will be done in a way that makes sure that the residents are happy frankly, oftentimes in Minnesota, where we've done a bunch of work, we'll go to we'll have a pre-meeting with the residents and say, hey, do you want to move out? And they'll, the hand will go up in the back and say, well, how much money is there for relocation? And we'll say, the hotel would be, $150 a night, and the food program would be $250, so it's like $3,000. Suddenly it's like, well, can I have the $3,000 because I'm going to stay at Aunt Sue's house? And we're like, sure, if that's what you want to do.
So from the time you walk in to the time where you walk out in a one-bedroom apartment, I mean, you guys are professionals, so how long does it take?
I say 5 days, but we tend to go with 10 working days just to make sure that, and particularly supply chain's been a little bit slower lately. So, I'd rather have things. The thing I don't want to have happen at this point in my life is for someone to call the mayor or the city council person and go, I went back to my apartment and I can't get in. It's Friday afternoon and my kids are here, and I don't want to make the newspaper. If I want to make the newspaper, I want to make it because maybe we did a community garden, not because we were unprepared. Okay, back to your Section 8 question for a second. So everybody who lives at a project-based Section 8 property pays rent based on their income. So they pay 30% of their annual adjusted income. So oddly enough, and the rumors seem to be true, that Social Security is going to have like a pretty massive correction this year in terms of maybe almost like an 8.5% increase. So they're, those folks, if their income goes up, their rent may go up, across, on that. But like by us doing Stephen and I and Frank doing a big, large scale rehab, that does not create a situation where the rents go from 1,000 to 1,200 or something like that.
And one of the other things, just so you know, is they're looking very closely at energy savings. That's a big part. So going to LED, going to other things. The tenants right now pay separately metered for electric and gas. And that's just cooking gas. The landlord pays the heat because we have a boiler system. We're looking at that. The boilers are 35 years old, so that's kind of like there's tunnels, there's piping, it's
Pays for itself to repair.
Yeah, something, and I will tell you, I've done a lot of construction. This is kind of beyond, and this is up their expertise. And they brought in one of their construction people, came in from Seattle and looked at walked through the job, and so I want it handled right because, like I said, believe it or not, a lot of these people I went to even high school with.
Yeah, there's a woman who has a cat or two, and we were there. Stephen and I and his sister were wandering around the property, and they all know Stephen by his first name. I was not. They were like, "Do you have business cards?" I was like, "Yes, I have business cards when I go to the IDA meeting, but maybe not for the cat lady." But no, it's like, and one of the reasons that we're happy that Stephen and his family are going to stay involved in the property as a limited partner with us is the fact that it's important to have someone local who's going to say, geez, why didn't the garbage get picked up? Or, what's going on in Unit 101?
And what's interesting, just so you know, not to tout our horn, but last year when the fire happened in Spring Valley and the firefighter died, within 2 weeks, we went through and spent, I think, $60,000 upgrading our system. We put signage on all the buildings, we put strobes. Believe it or not, it's not, while it meets NIAC's code, it doesn't really meet Section 8's code. Right. So we're actually probably going to go in and spend another $30,000. And one of the things that has to be done that wasn't done at the time is, like Scott said, hoods for the stoves, vents for the bathrooms, stuff like that. Air conditioning added to the living room. There's air conditioning sleeves in the bedrooms now. There'll be air conditioning in the living room. All the appliances will be energy efficient. They have to be a certain level. The exterior doors, a number of them will be changed based on fire rating. We're up to code in NIAC, but it's not up to code to what they do.
Right.
And when they do a massive renovation like that, they can bring everything up to code. And this is what they do, and they know there's really no shortcuts. So.
Any other questions? Okay, just before we move the resolution, I'd just like to footnote that I've known Steve for many years. I've owned properties very close to this property, and it's a property that looks great even today. It's an absolute necessity for the village of Nyack to keep it the way it is in terms of affordable housing. You're doing a good thing for the community.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Raj Mar,
Yes.
Tim Riley,
Yes.
Howard Hellman.
Yes.
You guys are induced. Just from quick, from a standpoint, we'll discuss it. The next step is a public hearing. We'll have it probably either in Nyack or Orange County, probably in Nyack, I guess we'll have it, obviously. But I'll give you a heads up. You're not obligated to come to the public hearing. It's kind of a one-way conversation with the public. Anybody wants to provide written or oral comments. It's not the forum for you to present the project or answer questions. It's not, the intent is simply of any public comment to us regarding incentives. And we can talk more about next steps from there. Then there'll be an authorizing resolution, and meanwhile, the attorneys will be talking on the bond. And by the way, everybody, they're looking for bonds, sales tax, mortgage tax, and a filing.
Could I make a few comments? So I think we spoke to some of you by phone earlier. This project will need a volume cap allocation. I expect next year that the IDA will have most of the allocation that you need, but not all of it.
Okay.
And, I think you'll be a few million short. And in the past, we've applied to another local state agency. And so I think we'd like to work with you to prepare a presentation.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and we'll be shooting for cap for next year. Is
Yep,
that correct?
exactly right, yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the time, appreciate it.
Please take a bagel. So I guess if you want to have Mike. Yeah, Mike.
Thank you. Good day.
Morning. All right, let me go first introduce Mike DeWicki from Northern Multicare. And just from an overview standpoint, I don't know if everyone's familiar with Northern Multicare. It's over on Middletown Road. It's been there for a number of years. They're coming to us for just for mortgage recording tax exemption on a financing of it so that they can reinvest into that facility to maintain the quality of the facility. Is the economic development and element of this. With that said, I want to introduce Mike to add any color to that basic.
Well, I mean, basically, we're looking to refinance because we originally secured the loan with $5 million in cash. So we want to refinance and use the buildings as the collateral, which will free up cash for us to make improvements. Staffing is always an issue. Be able to hire more staffing, keep up with the new rules with regard to the payment to the staff and the salaries. Everything's obviously costing more. So essentially, that's what we're looking to do, is to free up some cash.
How do we kind of oversee this to make sure that the funding, the benefits that we're providing, thus the funding goes to the purpose that they represent?
Good question. In the closing documents, maybe Lino, I'll defer to you on this. I'll give a broad answer. Is they're subject to all the normal compliance requirements as well as as far as the job is maintained and all those other elements. But I'll leave it up to Lino if you want to.
Yeah, it's no different from other projects. There's recapture provisions that we have in our documents, if they're not. And I don't think we're gonna have a third-party vendor come on from this. So, but there are recapture provisions in case they don't comply. Don't put it back in.
Is the money going to be used strictly to underpin the employees, or you can do any renovation?
No, it'll also be, upgrading the facility. It's a fairly old facility now. Physical plant, new equipment, beds. It's just basically to kind of keep it as modern as we can.
Other questions?
Yeah, how many beds do you have over there?
I believe that was 231.
At one time you put an addition on and stopped, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, we were going to add on, and that was actually before my time. I know that, you know, that was there for years, that the concrete.
Yeah, they had the footings in.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's all been filled in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe at some point we would look to expand, but that's not something that we're doing at this point.
My concern is simple, and I think this is what Howard was getting to, is you can go ahead and get remortgaged, you don't need our benefit. But with that, we don't want to see the company just take the money, get the mortgage, and then put it in their pocket. If it's gonna be reinvested in the building or used for payroll, et cetera,
Right.
I don't have a problem with it. Our concern is, again, that we're gonna help you just take money out of the building itself.
Well, I mean, we're also a not-for-profit, so we're, you know, there are certain rules that we have to follow with respect to, you know, how any profit, for lack of a better term, is being used. But, you know, our goal is, and our plan is to reinvest it back into the facility.
Are you using it for working capital, or are you using it to upgrade?
I'm not sure, yeah, probably a little bit of both.
How many employees do you have? Just rough.
There's about 200 full-time and 50 part-time. You know, that number changes as, you know, one of the big problems now is getting people that want to come in and do the work. Staffing is it's a nightmare.
Full disclosure, I worked there.
I delivered newspapers there way back in.
Yeah, I worked in the kitchen. I was in high school.
Is it like your food?
That was great.
You're going to come back?
No, it's all right.
A lot of history
around
these
these
tables.
I know.
And just for the record, because I know
You worked there also?
No. But you're adding 10 full-time, 5 part-time, correct, as far as this is about?
I mean, that's our plan, you know, is to add additional staff. The new state laws are requiring, you know, the staffing levels to increase.
And we would assume if you don't have the state mandated staffing levels, then you have to leave a certain amount of beds empty.
Correct.
That's not good for you. Any other questions?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Gotta have a vote.
Someone's got to move it.
Minor details.
You stole the drama from the moment. All right, Raj Shamar,
Yes.
Tim Riley, Howard Hellman.
Yes.
Now, good one. We will, like I said, we will have a public hearing. You're not required to attend it. It will be probably in Clarkstown Town Hall. And it's just a one-way communication. Anybody in the public wants to give us a comment, but again, you don't need to attend that.
Okay, and I know one of the things you had asked is when, you know, we anticipate the closing.
Yes.
So we're thinking, because of DOH requirements, notice requirements, somewhere mid-December to early January, hopefully.
That shouldn't.
Yeah, so once you have your public hearing, you're going to get authorized, and at that point, I'll give you my information, have your counsel contact us, and we'll get, you know, the documents rolling.
Okay, great.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
Great.
it'll be an issue.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Mike,
you,
thank you.
Somebody is totally leaving the building. No, it's not. Okay, like, those are pretty bad. So I raised these bad.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
We'll deal with that. We may have to change lanes on this. All right. Hi, Kiva, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
That's all right. That's good.
Welcome.
So,
Thank you.
hi.
For coming today.
So again, for everyone, Kiva Bomser we worked with Kiva, he and his team were the folks that did the Route 59 office building project at the site of the former Spring Valley Drive-In, and that project is progressing, and I think it's going to be a being subjective here, but from every report, it's going to make a dramatic difference.
It'd be a gorgeous building.
Yeah,
It's
we're
really
very excited about it.
That's what I heard, yes.
much different than the typical Rockland office building.
Yes,
So
yes.
congratulations.
It's gonna be an anomaly, so.
And since now they are investing further in Rockland County with a project involving warehouse and distribution and such, and again, they're looking for the normal, mix of incentive, sales tax, mortgage tax, pilot. It's a commercial project, so it is, consistent with other projects of the nature that we've done. And with that said, Kiva's here to answer any questions the board may have.
Would you like me to give an introduction about the project?
Sure.
Just by way of introduction, I work with my partner, Joe Brockfeld, I'm sure many of you know. He's overseas, so he apologizes that he couldn't make it to today's meeting. The project is in the village of Montebello. It's on Rella Boulevard, right off of exit 14B throughway. We have been back and forth with the planning board in Montebello to develop, call it two separate buildings, but the primary building is a 200,000 square foot warehouse, Class A warehouse and distribution with accessory office associated. And then the other building will be about 100,000 square feet of self-storage, which is at call it the front parcel. We're here today specifically about the warehouse building because it is a commercial use. As mentioned, the public hearing is still open by Montebello, but we're in the final stages of approval. They wanted certain things, and we've all come to a very good agreement, and they're very excited about the project. It's going to be a Class A industrial center, as mentioned. We're anticipating 1, 2, or maybe 3 tenants to occupy the space. Obviously, its location directly off the New York State Thruway will be, a very positive thing for tenants as they come to the community. We think that it will bring significant jobs, although it's hard to say how many jobs. But as warehouse Class A distribution centers have been particularly exciting and call it a very strong asset class in today's market due to e-commerce. We think that there will be a significant amount of jobs that will be coming to the center. So if there are any specific questions, I'm free to answer.
I don't know if I read that. How big is the warehouse? How many square foot?
200,000 square feet.
Rella Boulevard, there's a new senior citizens,
It's across the street.
Across the street.
this is going across the
Across the
street.
street, yes.
Okay.
And the way that it's been designed is that, for your edification, the way that it's been designed is that the seniors that are further into Rella Boulevard, the entrance will sort of not pass the seniors. It will be direct, kind of at the entry of Rella Boulevard. So it's been designed well that they feel that it will fit, within the landscape of Rella Boulevard. So
I didn't think there was that much property on that side.
It's a big lot.
Obviously,
it's 18 acres.
Yeah.
So you're just looking for the warehouse at this point, correct?
I mean, we're looking for we're developing the whole project. My understanding is that the warehouse specifically is the commercial aspect, whereas the self-storage, albeit there will be a retail component as many self-storage properties have, the standard, boxes, tape, that component of a self-storage facility. The employee count, is pretty minimal. It's typically somebody to rent out the storage houses and perhaps, a maintenance person or somebody to help unload or load, but it's typically minimal. I know the IDA is very strong. And I believe their mission statement is to bring jobs to the community and development to the community. We feel like this will obviously develop the community, but from a job standpoint, the warehouse distribution center will be a strong, will be strong in the job department.
What's the ETN site plan from Laville?
The public hearing, we're in front of them for the next hearing, which is October 11th, I believe. We're hopeful that the public hearing will be closed at that hearing. We had to make some revisions, very minor revisions, but yeah, the public hearing is still open, and it's hopefully going to be closed. And
How long has the public hearing been open?
say a couple months. I believe it was open July's hearing, but it's either June or July.
So you're looking to close and probably get approval next month,
Yeah, over the next couple months, hopefully have full.
get a bank deck and.
Yeah.
see.
Exactly.
Questions?
I'll make the, I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Okay, Raj Kumar,
Yes.
Jim Riley.
Yes.
Howard Hellman.
Yes.
Hey, you know the drill. You've been introduced. We'll have a public hearing probably over in Village Hall. You don't have to attend. It's really just a one-way communication from any member of the public. And then given your timing, I suspect what we'll do is we'll authorize this. We'll try and have the public hearing quickly, have it authorized, and I would imagine we'll shoot for October if all falls into place, which is your final approval, so that tees us up. So whenever you're ready to close, and, you know, and you're already in discussions with them, and you know, as far as the school district and village and town, we can discuss pilots.
Yeah.
You'll be working, just as a note, unlike your other project, you'll be working, this is a Suffern School District. We work very closely with them on pilots. So if you haven't already, I don't know if you've had any conversations with them yet.
Now, you and I have had discussions.
Right.
We haven't had directly with the school district. But
So I think you'll find a little different.
yes.
Going on. All right. Good. Thank you. We'll be.
Thank you, everyone.
Just keep us posted when you get your approvals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just let us
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Steve and I speak relatively often,
Yep.
so I will definitely do so.
Okay. Take care.
Ready for Cambridge?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you don't have a meeting for a couple of months, and we had a couple drop off that I was anticipating that just weren't quite ready. This could be.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, this is Lori Belinsky from Cambridge Security Seals, and maybe just as a point of introduction, we have a long, very positive history with Cambridge. We had done the original Cambridge Security Seals project. They're located on Route 202 in Pomona. They make, just as a point of reference, security seals, like for, say, when something is shipped in from overseas, and I'm giving a very simplistic overview, the containers are sealed, security seals, to ensure that they're not tampered with or anything like that. That's what they produce. And we've had a long history with them. They've met every obligation as far as jobs and everything else that they said they were going to do, probably in fact exceeded it. Well, they've come back to us and said now they're looking to expand to address market conditions, and a little bit, if I recall from Alicia, saying it's a matter of growing. You have to grow, if not,
Right.
you start to go in the wrong
Capacity.
direction.
Yeah, to build capacity.
And we have had, just as a point, we have had some discussions with the town and the village, just on I'm sorry, not the village, the town, on pilot. I can say that the town is positive about this project, is encouraging the project to take place, has had some engaged in preliminary pilot discussions. But with that said, now they're ready to move forward with an application. Like I said, that's why Lori is here. So Lori is here to answer any other questions. And
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your expansion?
Well,
How many square
basically-
feet, how many new employees?
Well, we do have the potential to put a new 10,000 square foot building on the property. Right now, though, what we're focusing on is building capacity within our plant, where we need to invest in machinery and technology to lower our lead times to meet our customers' demands. And that's basically where we want to start. The potential, we do have potential to put the building, an additional building, but right now, what we're trying to do is build our plant through machinery, technology, our lead time, to lower our lead time, so, you know, we can meet our customers' demands better, be more competitive. Because right now with the rising prices, for raw materials, supplies. The building is, we put the building to the side a little bit for now.
It's a lot, is accurate that your competition is mostly from overseas, China? And
China overseas, we have another big competitor in rural Georgia and Indiana where they don't have the expenses we have here in New York. And to remain competitive, we've actually absorbed a lot of the rising costs that we haven't passed on. So the way we're gonna do it is build capacity and lower our lead times and make our customers happy.
Where are most of your employees from?
Most of them are in the area, right in Rockland, we have some in Jersey. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Small variety.
But now I'm 15, not too bad. But most of our employees are all local, right in the area. And we currently have about 50 employees. We range from 58 to 62. So, around there.
Questions?
What are you looking for, sales tax?
the pilot, I think a nominal amount of sales tax, because.
Yeah, we're looking for a sales tax.
Sales tax on, some of the equipment is manufacturing, so it's already exempt, but apart from that.
Yeah, extension of our pilot, 10-year extension.
And the pilot is key because the managing their projected, well, just like the whole idea with pilots, there's almost a textbook example, the tax certainty they need to make that investment. And in fact, that's also why I know the town, sitting in the discussions with the town, Howie Phillips, supervisor, he likes tax certainty as well, as does the school district.
So the mortgage tax.
And the mortgage tax, yes.
If we move forward with, when we move forward with the building.
I'm going to accept.
I'll second.
We gotta keep manufacturing strong.
I'll move. Yeah.
Okay, Rajamar,
Yes.
Tim Riley,
Yes.
Howard Helm.
Yes.
Okay, so you're induced.
Good luck.
So that means, that's the initial approval. We'll have a public hearing, probably have a short town hall. You're not required to attend that one. Does any member of the public want to come provide us with, written or oral comment? It's not an occasion where you would present the project or anything like that. It's really just a one-way communication from the public to us. And then we have an authorizing resolution, and then we close. So I'll make sure you're aware of the timing on all these. And we can make sure our councils and your councils are talking as far as closing documents, and we'll be following up on the pilot, which is already underway as far as that discussion. So you tell Alicia you've been induced.
I will, he wanted to be here.
I know, I've known Alicia.
I have one footnote. So the purpose of this board is to make sure that your business continues to grow, thrive, be profitable, and stays within our community. So with that, I just want to take off my IDA hat and just share another little tidbit for you, which you probably already do. But because you're a manufacturer, any of your utility costs that are associated with manufacturing are tax exempt. So you should look at your utility bills and see if you're paying sales tax.
I believe they are, but
Okay.
I haven't looked in a while though.
Just wanted to share that with you because that could be significant amount of money.
Oh, it's definitely would be significant, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Journey from Pennsylvania to Little City.
Yeah, you gotta go where you have to go, so. It's all highway though, so it's nice. It's actually a pretty route. Thank you all.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sometimes it can take 25, 30 minutes.
She's got a heavy foot.
So you can.
Cool.
Morning, Ryan. Nice to see
How are you? Good to see you.
So we don't have any more inducement, but we do have Ryan Porter, who is the developer and won I believe it was an RFP with the village, right?
Yes.
Correct. For the development of what's kind of known as a Havister Chair Factory property down by the river. And it's I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm going to shut up in a second, but I do know, talking to the mayor, that they're looking at this as a game changer for the village of Havister. So that's a little teaser, and I'm going to leave it up to Ryan to fill in the blanks of what I meant by that. So if you want to, I'll hand it to you. And like I said, this is, you can see the board, this is our board and attorneys, and this is just an informal overview
Cool, yeah, no, thank you.
And we have, if you have questions for us, now's the time to ask them as well.
Sure, thanks. Thank you, everybody, for having me today, first and foremost. So as Steve mentioned, I just wanted to kind of have an intro meeting. Everything works out the way I want it to. I'm gonna be working hopefully in Haverstraw for quite some time, so I'd like to kind of build a rapport with you folks and, get in front of letting you know what our plans are and what we're working on there. Maybe I could give you like 5 minutes of background on us first, and then talk to you a little bit about the project. I don't take too much of your time. I realize it's Friday. So my firm is Impact Collective, and we are a redevelopment firm based on Long Island. And we spun out of a company called Renaissance Downtowns. This is actually our first project working in Rockland County, so we're pretty excited about that. We've done a ton of work on Long Island and in Westchester County. We basically specialize in larger scale public-private partnerships where we partner with municipalities to revitalize downtown areas. The largest project we've done, while not in Rockland, but in the region, is the city of New Rochelle. So in New Rochelle, we partnered with RXR Realty in 2015, and the city of New Rochelle, we put in place a new form-based zoning code, a new seeker process. We worked with New Rochelle IDA to revise their UTAP, to put in place a new Rochelle UTAP. And it's led to a lot of revitalization and development in New Rochelle since 2015. That project was originally about 15 million square feet of development, and it's grown to about 20 million square feet of development since then. We're actually, once we finished kind of the first phase of the entitlement work and some of the development, actually sticks and bricks started, we actually turned the master developer position over to RXR. We exited, and within a year, the city, we never consulted before, but the city actually asked us to come back as a consultant for our first ever consulting gig to update their zoning, work with them to update things, and working with the IDA and the community and land use and departments. So now we still actually are kind of a quasi arm of the city's planning department at this point. So that just kind of gives you like a sense of the relationships that we build with municipalities. We get pretty tight with them. We get pretty tight with all involved agencies, whether it be at the county level or the state level, having to do with the municipality in which we're working. So we're really excited about Haverstraw. We responded to first an RFQ, then an RFP. We were selected officially at the beginning of this year in about March. So we spent the last 4 to 6 months negotiating our agreement with them for this site. The Chair Factory site is about a 9-acre site along the waterfront, right at the terminus of Main Street in Haverstraw. Folks are familiar with it, but it was obviously a former Chair Factory. Before that, it was where the Haverstraw Brickyards, many of the brickyards were. Haverstraw has an amazing history of building because of the brickyards. It was like crazy to hear and read, going to the Brick Museum, that 1/3 of all the bricks in New York City in the early 1800s came from Haverstraw. So the history is rich. The community is diverse. It's very similar to a lot of the communities that we work in. And we're excited to move the project forward. We proposed in the RFP about 600,000 square feet of development, which would include about 450 mixed income units. So we were targeting about 30 to 40% of those units as tax credit affordable units. Our 50-50 partner in this deal is a group called Penrose. I don't know if you guys have any familiarity with Penrose, but they're a pretty large regional housing, affordable housing developer. We're excited to work with them on this project. In addition to that, we're proposing about 30,000 square feet of commercial space, mix of retail, and kind of flex office type stuff, but mostly restaurant and retail space. And we proposed about 75,000 square feet of hospitality space. So I have a PowerPoint, but I know it's probably not a point appropriate for today. At some point, I want to show you the site, what's going on the site, kind of the phasing that we're thinking about. The project at this point is approached a little different than we're normally used to, frankly. Our typical relationships, we've responded to RFQs and been selected as a master developer for a downtown area and partnered with the municipality and the community and kind of come up with an overall vision for the whole downtown area. The mayor and leadership in Haverstraw have done a lot of the kind of pre-work and are eager to get going. So when we proposed our approach and concept, they asked us to kind of get more granular and put forth what we would think would be the best development for the site up front. We're still going to kind of backtrack a little bit and do a lot of that community work. So the first 90 days of our process when we sign, today or Monday, goes with a revitalization action plan that we do, which is like a quasi-master planning on steroids type thing that gets done fast. A ton of that is community engagement work. We do this very unique community engagement process called crowdsourced placemaking. It comes with a social media based website where people post ideas for uses on the site, whether those be retail uses or hospitality uses. And then they can like those ideas and ideas that rise to the top in that process throughout the community. We do feasibility analysis on. We work hand in hand with the community and local entrepreneurship. I've worked in multiple communities in which we've helped multiple businesses open. One of the things that we find as an advantage as being kind of a broader based developer in partnership with municipalities is that we can actually use that juice to help local entrepreneurship. So I've been part of helping people with business plans, walking them into local and loan lending institutions, telling those lending institutions, hey, we're about to invest $200, $300, $400 million in this community over the next 5 to 10 years. You should help this person's business, and here's why, right? So we take that very broad, comprehensive approach because we feel, all ships rise, and that's the best way to go about it. It also avoids controversy, litigation, stalling. So kind of target all that stuff up front and build that rapport up front and help folks up front and build those partnerships so that on the back end, we save time, effort, brings economic development faster to the community. So we've been very successful in that approach elsewhere. Here we're kind of diving in much quicker than we normally would to the actual program and development. But so we're hoping that we do this 90-day wrap process. We'll then submit our in-house developed form-based zoning code that we'll look to drop on the site, overlay form-based zoning district. We'll do the New York State seeker process, which has to get done. And we're hoping that within kind of the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be ready to go and get in the ground. There's a lot of complications with the site. It obviously sits on a peninsula within a floodplain. That actually has disadvantages and advantages. And because of the floodplain that exists there, one of the cool things about it is that we're going to try to hub all our buildings for the new development up against the hill. So it's really connected to the existing Main Street and grid that exists there today. And B, it allows the remainder of the land, which is probably going to be about 50% to 60% of that 9 acres along the waterfront, to be parks and open space. So a lot of stuff we have to do. We've applied for DRI dollars. The Village of Haverstraw was awarded a $10 million DRI last year, so we've applied for about $4 million of those dollars for shoreline stabilization work that needs to occur. We've already applied for a balance of $6 million through the CFA process to also assist in that park development and stabilization, as well as we have to construct that new road into the site. We're trying to build this project so that when you walk to the end of Main Street today, it will no longer be a vehicular entrance down the hill to our site. It will be a pedestrian entrance that brings you to the waterfront. And we're trying to enter the site from a back side, which has a paper road right now. That's a dirt road that's used by DPW that we need to stabilize and turn into a real road so that we can enter most of the traffic from that side. A lot of traffic work has to be done, studies, et cetera, during the seeker process. But there's a lot I threw out there. So that's kind of my overview of where we're at, and we are going to be looking for IDA assistance. Almost none of the projects that I've been involved with don't need IDA assistance through the complications that are involved. Obviously, we have an affordable component, we have a market rate component, so that has to be taken into consideration. But we're trying to attack this and underwrite this so that we build it in one phase, so that we're not forced to phase this State HCR is excited for this project. They want to push this as one phase. They really don't want us to segregate the tax credit component from the market rate component. It actually only makes sense because of its complexities of the site, that there's one podium, one parking structure, with, one set of buildings that are, built on top of it with different components within them. The hotel component will be a lagging component of this because we really do have to build the market on the site first, but we are reserving what we believe to be probably the best portion of the site at the peninsula's point for view corridors and aesthetics for the hospitality component. We have a lot of experience in hospitality. We've still Marriott Residence Inn. We've done a lot of hospitality entitlement and development work in the past. I will tell you that coming through COVID, when we first started talking to the municipality of Packstraw, to the village, there was skepticism as to where the hospitality industry was going to go, whether it was coming back or not coming back post-COVID. It has been strong. Obviously, we have some economic struggles going on broad-based right now from a nationwide perspective that could change that. But I would tell you from late 21 through kind of the middle of this year, there was a huge surge in hospitality. So we're excited for that component, but it will be a lagger to the other components of the project. We will need assistance as well, but we'll be coming back to you folks with kind of all the underwriting and how we think all that shakes out as we finalize the program and get through the entitlement work. Stop and answer any questions they have with my firm about the project, any concerns. I know it's early. I'll bring you some.
I'll just comment because I'm very familiar with your show. You probably work with Chuck Strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know Chuck well, but it's pretty impressive. So just
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
and
Luis Aragon, do you know him? I mean, he did a great job working with us when he was the commissioner. The team there right now with Adam Salgado and Kathleen and all those folks are great. Chuck's great. My partner Sean McLean is actually kind of the head of that project, so I'm kind of more on the ancillary for that.
It was a good project. I know what they did in their show with more base codes, so land use guy. So I kind of know what's going on there.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, this is Lino Sharetta, our one of our councils.
Oh, okay.
So great to meet you.
Yeah, do you mind who's who?
Yeah, maybe we probably should have done that. Ryan and I have met already, but maybe if we start with Ryan and just kind of go.
For Ms. Hawkins, Delafield and Wood, we're one of the Ideas Council. We specialize in tax exempt bond financing. We also do a lot of other stuff.
Cool. And you, Rockland County based or?
Well, our firm is in New York City, but Ron lives in Westchester. I live in Putnam County.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, I apologize. I haven't heard of the firm.
Yeah.
We've got IDA clients in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm Dan, Ron Grosser, Dan Birmingham, same firm.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Tim Riley with the IDA.
Great. Nice to meet you, Tim.
Peggy Van Dyver.
Yes. You, Keenan, thank you for helping me organize this.
No problem.
My name is Rudy Zoda. I'm with Bleakley Plattman. I'm also one of the counsel for the IDA.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you.
Roger Amar, I'm with the IDA.
Howard Hellman with the IDA.
And Lino Sharetta with Blakely Platt, also IDA council.
Cool. And we've already met. Just something I wanted to put out to the board. As you can see, this has a lot of different moving parts, and it's interesting. Ryan was mentioned that they're going to look at this as a one-phase project. Again, I would probably suggest that we all sit down before you start applying.
Yeah.
We should probably huddle our councils and you and your team to talk about how we want to structure that, because this project, from an IDA perspective, it encompasses retail, hospitality, office, housing. I mean, there's a lot of different elements. Now, given in Haverstraw, all these elements are eligible, as everyone knows, because Haverstraw is considered an economically depressed area. Retail, we can do there, as compared to other parts of the county, they're not. So they're not restricted by those type of uses. And you can even build a tourism element to it. I mean, so there's a lot of pieces here. So my point being is we may want to talk as far as how to structure the application, whether it's multiple applications for each element of the project, that may be some, but again, this is not the place to get into the, but we'll talk that through to say what, because I think the board has a long history and the IBA in general has a long history of saying, let's do what makes business common sense within the rules that we're bound by.
Sure.
So we'll talk more about that as far as how to structure those applications.
That's great. Who's your counsel for, your application for the IDA,
So truth be told, I usually use Dean Porcelli out on Long Island for a lot of my IDA work. I'm not sure who we're going to select for this yet. We have Penrose and I have to kind of huddle up and decide who we want to go with. If you guys have firms that you work well with, that you want to recommend that we could talk to, we can explore all that stuff. We're probably, at least 6 to 9 months away from, exploring that. But, timing wise, I'm thinking, let me get through my RAC process and get that adopted. At that point, we will submit the zoning code. Maybe I can come back for another 20-minute update with you folks kind of at that 3 to 1 month mark. Just give you a status of where I'm at, won't take up too much of your time. And then once we get through the zoning and the seeker process and that's adopted, we're going to dive right into the site civil plan. And that's really where I think we can start talking details, because we're going to know very specifically at that point, unit counts and square footages and timing and all that stuff.
Well, thank you for coming this morning.
I just have one question. How are you gonna get the people to the ferry?
How are we going to get the people to the ferry? So the mayor and the community have a push to want
Swim?
swim around. Well, I have to tell you, I'm concerned about the connectivity of the ferry as well. And one of the big concerns about that is there is a walkability component from the current ferry terminal to the site, save for the fact that there's a corner right where I think it's the VFW is.
Elks.
It's the Elks, that's what it is, sorry. VFW is over there, right? It's Village Hall. That corner kind of cuts it off to some extent. And I know there's been discussions with them that I've heard in the past about that stuff. I don't know the answer to your question yet, but it's a big piece of it. And there's a push and a discussion about there used to be a pier at the Chair Factory site as well.
I was just gonna say, why don't you put in your own ferry?
Well, we've had conversations about that. Is it a second stop, right? Like, does the ferry swing through, stop around Ginsburg, swing back through us, stop at us, and then head back across, right? That could work. Obviously, building a whole ferry pier and all that stuff is expensive infrastructure project, so we have to have those conversations with MTA, the state, as to how we can finance that, DEC.
Or just leave a rowboat and you can row.
I think maybe some wetsuits, we'll figure it out.
I'm not sure if we can ask council, can we give IDA benefits for life jackets?
Swimming.
Thank you again, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
I love your enthusiasm and.
I'm a passionate guy.
Hopefully you hear what the doctor ordered for the village.
I appreciate that.
Yes, it does need a.
It's got great bones.
It's got great
bones. It really does. I mean, there's not a lot of, honestly, I do this work all over the country. I can't tell you how many downtowns have been torn down over the last 70 years. And I work in a lot of them where they missed that boat. Everything got torn down, right?
Maybe you can do what I was not able to do. I have some properties in Havistra, and I've always been saying that they should change the name from the Village of Havistra to Bricktown, USA. And everybody laughs at me. And I'm saying, come on, guys.
Hey, listen,
this is your history.
It's a good marketing. I mean, it makes sense.
And there's only so much riverfront.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that honestly, it hasn't been able to be taken advantage of for however long is a problem, right? So we got to solve that. And, I don't want to drag this on too long, but our mission is to drop a zoning code in place that works as a kind of pilot program for the remainder of the village, right? So that's the goal, is how do we get this development done and then work and expand throughout the village for the rest of the village, that what's needed. And there's a lot of that comes into that. There's mitigation that's going to have to happen with all the infrastructure that's there. And it's going to take time, but we're excited for it, as you can see. And
thank you.
Hold up.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, any other new business?
No other new business.
I just have just one question. With all of these new projects and with the labor policy, what are we doing with oversight to make sure that the folks that are working on these sites are indeed local?
You couldn't ask a better question if I fed it to you to ask that question. We working with, so thank you for that. We work with a company, a firm called Low-Key Brill. Low-Key Brill is, we have an agreement, like they're almost like our attorneys it's on a project by project basis. And what they do is they come in prior to closing, they will meet with these folks. They will set up their process for inspections and all the rules they set up. So there is an ongoing compliance. They're doing exactly what we simply don't have the resources or expertise to do. So they come in and in fact, how it's set up, and it's in the contract that they're obligated, like these folks or any of these projects are obligated to go along with this. We get an estimate of how much inspection and cost Low-Key Brill will incur to this. We take that money, we bill them, we put it into an escrow account with Orange Bank that we've already set up. It's a main account with subcategories based on individual projects. So we can monitor, that escrow dollar amount for each of these projects. And as Low-Key Brill does its inspections and incurs their expenses, they invoice us and we pull money out of that to pay them. That's the payment part of it.
It's funded by the applicants.
By the applicant, yeah. Ultimately, it's neutral to us. The applicant's picking up the whole thing. But they go out and they're going to do all the things that you just asked. They're going to require proof. They're going to look at payroll. They're going to do all the things to make sure that that the employees are meeting the parameters of our labor policy. Ongoing.
So my question, we as the board know all that.
Right.
But have they started doing that?
Yes. They've started it because it was implemented April 1st. They're already working with Manhattan Beer. They're already working with the housing projects the Myrtle Avenue project. So if you talk about projects, and again, these are projects as they close. Now, we closed on projects that were induced and authorized prior to our April 1st start. So that's why you're going to see a little bit of a lag time as far as them up and running. But now these projects that we've induced after April 1st are starting to get teed up and closed, and now everyone will be under
Gearing up, they'll
Yes.
be gearing up.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
To add to that? That we get reports from Low-Key Brill. I don't want to know the gory details, but at monthly meetings, we've reviewed X, we reviewed B, and then if there's a problem, obviously they'll come to us. But again, I want to know what they're doing, that's all.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. They do have a reporting process, but I like the idea that let's make it part of the board meeting.
Yeah.
Just like we do financials and everything
Well, and it makes us aware of what's going on,
Yeah.
so if there is a problem, we are familiar with it.
Okay. Yep, I like that idea.
And it just adds to the board meeting.
Yeah, we don't want you guys getting bored. So,
Want to add another 2 hours? Don't you? I can tell you're retired.
I know I've had you here for a while, and I know people have places to be. Just very quickly, if you want to do the just review the financials for the IDA.
They were emailed.
Yes, again, the financials, if I can do this quickly. So the financials were emailed to everyone. I know everybody had a chance to study them, review them. Anyone have any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. The audit, again, just like we said, we could save time on that. Again, that's going to go out. I have 5 firms that were recommended. Now, I don't believe this is something I should discuss in live, right? Can we go? I don't think we have to go to executive session, but this is something, obviously.
Most of the, you can talk about it, it's an executive session topic, you can move to go to executive session, or if you're seeking counsel advice, that's different also. But you have to have that.
Do you want, does the board want to know who we're initially, and you may have suggestions of other firms, by the way. Do you want to quickly go into executive session quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Motion to go into executive
To
session.
discuss
Okay.
central audit firms.
You can turn that off. Okay, motion, all in favor.
There wasn't a second. Thank you.
I don't know, did we